The manga version of this fight is very different than the anime. In the manga, Ed is beating Greed up and is winning the fight. Greed actually states, "You're a bad matchup for me," and Greed runs away from Ed. Hey, what's up everybody? It's LeeLos, and today we're talking about why Edward versus Alphonse is obvious. Stay steady in pursuit of your dreams and goals. You're born to win, you're made for greatness, and I definitely believe in you guys. Keep up the great work each and every day. Edward versus Alphonse is a battle between two brothers that go through hell together as children, then face numerous hardships on their path as martial artist scientists doing everything they can to gain more knowledge and ultimately become more powerful through the study of alchemy. Today we're going to analyze every major battle and every single power-up that these two characters receive throughout the entire duration of the series, and after every major power-up, we'll compare these two characters to see who is truly more powerful than who in an all-out life-or-death battle. So the manga reveals that as toddlers, Ed actually had the upper hand on Alphonse. Ed would bully Alphonse around as toddlers sometimes just because he wanted more attention from his mama, but pretty much from the moment Alphonse was old enough to talk in fully formed sentences, Al starts running Ed's fade. The reason for this is because Alphonse was born slightly more gifted in hand-to-hand combat, while Ed was born slightly more gifted in alchemy. In the anime, they outright blatantly state this by showing Ed and Al performing alchemy, and Ed's is consistently more impressive than Alphonse's, but in the manga, it's more revealed through subtle context clues, the main one being that Ed pushes alchemy further than Alphonse does and reaches alchemic breakthroughs more than twice as fast as Alphonse does numerous times throughout the series. Reaching into the gate and binding a soul to a suit of armor, learning destruction alchemy after battling Scar a single time, turning his soul into a philosopher's stone and invading the mind of a homunculus. These are a few of many examples of Ed performing impressive alchemic feats that Alphonse never once displays. This is even more impressive when you consider that Al never sleeps, meaning Alphonse literally has twice as many waking hours as Edward, but Ed still reaches alchemic breakthroughs faster than Alphonse numerous times throughout the story. Despite Ed having a consistent slight advantage in alchemic talent, Edward and Alphonse are both alchemy geniuses, proven by Ed and Alphonse both teaching themselves alchemy as toddlers by reading Hohenheim's alchemy textbooks. To push their skills further, Ed and Al start training with Izumi. The first month of their training is on an abandoned island where they have to survive by hunting animals, while also having daily battles with Izumi's employee Mason. They're more or less just normal children when they reach the island, but by the time they leave the island, Ed and Al are both much more powerful and they're actually good fighters and skilled hunters. This is proven by analyzing their battles with Mason, because at the start of the month, Ed and Al both are getting low diff destroyed by Mason, but after 1 month, they're both able to hold their own and fight Mason evenly for a while. It should be noted that Mason was holding back the entire time, and his job was to make sure that Ed and Al got stronger while ensuring they stayed alive, but he struggles with holding back, so there was likely moments where he got carried away, yet Ed and Al were still holding their own with him by the time they left the island. If Ed were to hop into a time machine after 1 month of training and battle the Alphonse before the 1 month of training, then Ed would win 100% of the time. However, since they both do the training together and Alphonse is consistently stated to be superior at hand-to-hand than Ed, this Alphonse would still absolutely beat the brakes off of Ed if they were to fight at this point in the series. Ed and Al then go on to train for 5 to 6 months with Izumi, every day studying alchemy deeply and training martial arts with extreme intensity. We don't get to see all of Ed and Al's training with Izumi, but it's implied by Ed and Al's trauma that it was even more challenging than surviving 1 month on the island. After completing this training, Alphonse and Edward are 10 and 11 years old respectively, and they're already close to state alchemist levels of power. This is proven by Roy personally traveling to Resemble to recruit Ed and Al for the state alchemist exam at this point in the series. Roy then goes on to blatantly state that Ed's ability to perform human transmutation and bind a soul to a suit of armor is already impressive enough for him to qualify as a state alchemist. Ed and Al perform human transmutation and are thrust into the Gate of Truth, and by surviving this, Ed and Alphonse both become significantly significantly more powerful. Alphonse loses his physical body, but gains a body that never gets tired and can't feel pain, while Ed gains the ability to perform alchemy without a transmutation circle, and he gains auto-male limbs. Being able to perform alchemy without a circle puts Ed an entire league above Alphonse in terms of skill and power with alchemy. This is stated by Ed and Alphonse both when they come back from their training with Izumi. They state that Izumi is on a completely different level than they are, and one of the main reasons for that is because she can perform alchemy without a circle. Now that Ed can do alchemy the same way, he's starting to get closer to the same tier that his teacher is in, while for Alphonse, this still seems almost impossibly far away. If 12-year-old auto-male Ed were to fight 11-year-old armor Alphonse to the death, then Ed kills Alphonse nearly 100% of the time. Alphonse is considerably superior in hand-to-hand fighting than Edward is now. Even in his human body, 11-year-old Alphonse would beat 12-year-old Ed. Add to the fact that now Al can't feel pain, is like 7 feet tall and made of pure steel, he would destroy Ed in hand-to-hand. But alchemy is far more powerful than physical hand-to-hand fighting is. The big thing to keep in mind is that Ed, the entirety of the series, is always holding back because he doesn't want to kill his opponents. This is hinted at numerous times, such as his battles with Kimberly and Scar. Ed himself knows destruction alchemy the same way Scar does, but he never uses it to blow people up, for example, despite the fact that he could. If Ed were to battle Alphonse to the death, Ed could most likely instantly kill Al by unbinding his soul from the armor. This is actually what Alphonse does himself at the very end of the series. It's implied that Ed thought of this strategy long before Alphonse did, but never said anything about it, because when Alphonse begins to transmute himself, Ed screams at him to stop before Al completes the transmutation. So Ed versus armor Alphonse wins nearly 100% of the time with this win condition, and even without that win condition, Ed would still be able to kill Alphonse simply by using his superior alchemy. Ed with his alchemy is an overall more powerful fighter than Alphonse is. This is proven by Ed doing better against stronger opponents than Alphonse does, such as in their first battle with Scar and with Greed. During their battle with Scar, Alphonse gets one shot without laying a single finger on Scar, while Ed is able to land a scratch on Scar by using alchemy. Edward's automail is slightly weaker here due to Winry forgetting to add an important bolt into his arm, so Alphonse could win the battle if he presses Ed close range immediately and breaks his automail, but seeing how Slicer wasn't able to do that before Ed destroyed him, Alphonse likely wouldn't be able to either. The next major power-up comes during the time of their battle with Greed. Ed and Alphonse go back to their masters so they can gain more knowledge about alchemy and become stronger. In the manga, they actually show Ed doing strength training, and Izumi states that she will use Alphonse as a sparring partner. This mini-arc gives major evidence to the claim that with alchemy, Edward is a more powerful fighter than Alphonse. Alphonse battles 3 Chimera by himself. His strategy is to tire them out first, then defeat them when they're out of stamina, but they end up capturing Al. Then Izumi shows up, fights all 3 Chimera by herself while they're at full stamina, and she low diff destroys them all. Then Izumi battles Greed and struggles against him. In the manga, Izumi doesn't figure out how to get past Greed's ultimate shield, so she's actually taking damage from every attack she lands on Greed and is somewhat losing this battle, showing that Greed on his own is more dangerous than all 3 of his Chimera subordinates together. Ed shows up and also low diffs one of the Chimera, then does better against Greed than Izumi does. The manga version of this fight is very different than the anime. In the manga, Ed is beating Greed up and is winning the fight. Greed actually states, "You're a bad matchup for me," and Greed runs away from Ed. Then later on in the manga, whenever this scene is referenced, they refer to it as that time when Edward beat Greed. But in the anime, they make it look like Ed Ed was running out of stamina and was about to lose. So in the manga, Ed defeats a homunculus on his own that's more powerful than the 3 Chimera that beat Alphonse, objectively proving that at this point in the series, Ed with his alchemy would beat Alphonse as well. Alphonse gets his memory back from what he saw in the Gate of Truth after the Greed arc. Alphonse sees deeper into the Gate of Truth than Ed does because he pays a bigger price. And now, when they battle L'Enfant and Fu, Al reveals that he can do alchemy by clapping his hands as well. The question becomes, is Alphonse more powerful in alchemy than Edward is now because he saw more of the Gate of Truth? The short answer is no, because Ed's alchemic genius and experience over the past 3 years overpowers the additional information Al gains from the Gate of Truth. This is subtly proven numerous times throughout the series, the most notable example being Ed thinking of and teaching an alchemic breakthrough theory to Alphonse just a few weeks after this that sets up the foundation of the final arc of the entire series. Alchemic power comes from knowledge of alchemy. Every alchemist is essentially a real-life engineer that specializes in a specific branch of engineering. The same way there's a great difference between a software engineer and a mechanical engineer, so too is there a great difference between being a Fullmetal Alchemist and a Flame Alchemist. The more you learn about a specific type of alchemy, the more powerful you become at that type of alchemy, which is why characters like Ed and Roy Mustang, despite being very powerful alchemists, both state that they're not very good at medical alchemy. Simply put, for Alphonse to be more powerful in alchemy than Edward, he would have to know more alchemy than Edward, and he simply never in the entire series displays that he does. Proof of this is shown by carefully analyzing their battle with L'Enfant and Fu. Ed uses destruction alchemy to remove L'Enfant's mask, but Al doesn't. He removes Fu's mask instead, just like with force, and wins by double team jumping Fu, while Ed wins his battle against L'Enfant 1v1. After getting automail, L'Enfant is later introduced as Ling's strongest servant, putting her above Fu, so that makes this current scene more impressive as well. Soon after this, Ed on his own develops an alchemic theory more advanced than Izumi or Al ever developed. He figures out that Al's body is still alive within the gate, and it can be brought out of the gate the same way Al's soul was. He also figures out that his body is connected to Al's body in the gate, meaning all the food and sleep he gets is shared with Alphonse. This is canonically the reason why Ed is short as well. It's because he's literally malnourished and sleep deprived throughout the entire series. Ed figures all of this out alone, then teaches this theory to Alphonse, meaning even after seeing more of the Gate of Truth, Ed is still ahead of Al in alchemic knowledge. So much so that he's genuinely sitting Alphonse down and teaching Al groundbreaking alchemy theories like a big bro. How is this possible? It's because of Ed's genius for alchemy and Ed's superior experience. If Al had remembered everything he saw from the gate at age 11, then yes, he likely would have been a superior alchemist to Ed, but he does not. Ed remembers the knowledge of the Gate of Truth instantly and builds on it for 3 years as a state alchemist from age 12 to 15. By the time Al gets his knowledge at age 14, Ed is so far ahead in alchemy that Al is still a bit behind, even after getting his extra truth memories. Ed being a greater alchemic genius than Alphonse is hinted at by Izumi, where she states that Ed's ability to go into the gate and remember everything at 11 years old and stay sane is proof that Ed is a genius, while Alphonse lost his memory due to the shock. Something else worth mentioning is Ed might have seen the Gate of Truth twice, while Alphonse only saw it once, because Ed saw it once when he lost his leg, then possibly a second time when he pulled Al's soul out of the gate. This could explain Ed's superiority in alchemy as well, so despite seeing more of the Gate of of truth, based on the feats in the series, Edward is still more knowledgeable and still a more powerful alchemist than Alphonse at this point in the series, and as a result, would still kill Alphonse if they fought life or death. Ed and Al are constantly getting stronger in training their body and mind. They learn this from training with Izumi, that training the body and the mind together makes you a better alchemist and it helps you to learn faster. And it's stated in Resin Bowl that Ed and Al spar each other in their free time, meaning as passionate as they are about learning alchemy, they are almost equally as passionate about getting physically stronger as well. This is proven in their second battle with Scar that they've become a lot more powerful. In their first battle, Ed and Al couldn't even react to Scar's attacks. He was too fast for them to properly dodge anything, and they both get one shot the moment they stop running away. In this battle, however, they're both holding their own against Scar, both landing attacks on Scar, and Edward dodges numerous attacks from Scar as well. Ed and Al both have an individual moment in the battle where they're battling Scar 1v1 and about to die, and the other saves them from Scar, showing that if they were to fight Scar 1v1, Scar would still be able to kill them pretty quickly, but when Ed and Al work together, they can now hold their own against Scar and land attacks on him, whereas before in their first battle, even working together, Ed and Al both got one shot. The most impressive thing about this is that Scar is even stronger here than he was the last time. Scar states that he is always training to get stronger. It was shown when he was recovering in a tent near death, he was still working out curling dumbbells. So if Ed and Al fought the original Scar, they would have done even better, and they would have had an actual genuine shot at winning that battle. Here they can hold their own against Scar, but it's implied that in an uninterrupted fight, Scar would still have the upper hand at this point in the series. Ed and Al have both become more powerful, but the dynamic stays the same, where Ed would win in a life or death fight at this point in the series. The next major power-up is when Ed receives Briggs Automail. It weighs less than Ed's previous Automail, and as a result, makes Ed faster than Scar. This version of Ed and Alphonse battle Scar and actually defeat him. There is a moment when Scar has the upper hand in the fight, but then he hesitates and Ed and Al defeat him, showing at this point Ed and Al together are so close in power to Scar that a moment's hesitation determines the victory. It should also be noted that in this fight, Ed is capable of landing an attack on Scar 1v1 for the first time. This version of Ed is very powerful. He even scales above characters like Philosopher's Stone Kimberly if he goes all out, and yes, you guessed it, he would still beat Al because of the difference in alchemy. After Ed loses to Kimberly, there's a time skip of 6 months where Ed is traveling with Greed, preparing for the Promised Day, and Alphonse is with Major Miles trying to keep his soul from rebounding back into the gate. Ed comes back from this time skip 16 years old, and now he's taller than Winry and is considerably stronger than he was before the time skip. Ed learned how to copy the ultimate shield from Greed on his Automail limbs, and Ed is strong enough now to reflect attacks from Pride, even after Pride powers up from absorbing Gluttony and becomes so strong that even Hohenheim calls Pride scary. Edward also saves Lanfon from Pride, implying that Ed still scales above Lanfon even with her Automail upgrade. This is Ed at one of his strongest points in the entire series, and he might have spent a large amount of the 6-month time skip training, because it's stated by the Chimeras that they did everything they could to prepare for the Promised Day. This version of Ed obviously cooks Alphonse. At this point in the series, Ed might even be a tough match for Scar 1v1, but he would likely still lose to Scar because Scar continuously trains as well. The next major power-up in the series is Philosopher's Stone Alphonse. Now, Philosopher's Stone Alphonse cooks this current post-time skip Ed and all the prior versions of Ed low diff, actually, because now Al is more powerful than Ed in hand-to-hand fighting and more powerful than Ed in alchemy. Al is so powerful in this form that he was capable of fighting Philosopher's Stone Kimberly and Pride at the same time, and he nearly won the battle as well. The final power-up of the show happens during the final battle of the series. During the final battle, Scar activates a transmutation circle that lets alchemists harness much more of the limitless power of Earth when doing transmutations, meaning all the alchemists instantly become become much stronger. This is also the only time in the series we see Ed go all out, because he actually uses alchemy designed to kill the father homunculus rather than just damage him, and we see how devastating Ed is and how he truly is a human weapon when he's not holding back. This version of Ed still destroys Alphonse because Ed's alchemic knowledge was superior before the power-up, and then Ed and Al receive the same power-up, so Ed would still be stronger. Ed then goes on to 1v1 defeat a weakened Pride and learns how to turn his soul into a Philosopher's Stone and invaded the mind of the homunculus Pride. Something, once again, that Alphonse never displays. This feat might be possible for Ed because his father is a living Philosopher's Stone in the shape of a human being. At the end of the story, Ed sacrifices his alchemy to pull Al's body out of the Gate of Truth. Al is malnourished and can't fight in that body until he gets healthy again, but Al has super powerful alchemy and Ed has literally none. If they were to fight at this point in the series, there's a chance Al could just lay down on the ground, spamming alchemy, and still kill Ed. Then after the series ends, Al heals up and has a healthy body again. Then Alphonse goes off to the east to learn alchemy, so he ends up having alchemy like May and still has overpowered alchemy from the amp Scar gave to all the alchemists, while Ed is just a normal, strong human being who might have developed a new fighting style based around weapons similar to Ling. So even without alchemy, Ed can become a super strong character, but he's nothing compared to end of story Al, because Ed gave up his alchemy powers while Alphonse went on to continue getting even more powerful in alchemy. If Ed still had his powers, he would still be beating Alphonse, but because he sacrifices his alchemy to save his brother, from then onwards, his brother stays stronger than Ed. It's possible that Ed might learn alchemy and become a fighter on the same level as Scar, but we never know if he does or does not, and we don't even know if it's possible. But yeah guys, that was everything I wanted to say. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate the view, and I'll see you guys on the next video.